I believe that with everything, there's always a wave and then a crash, and then it comes back. Like after that chasm, right? Things come back, and we've seen that before. We saw that with .coms. We saw it with reggaeton.
All right, we got the streaming titan himself, the expert Tuma Basa. Welcome to the podcast, man.
No, thank you for having me. Trapido is how I keep up with what's going on with the economics of hip hop.
Love to
Yeah,
hear it, man.
yeah.
Definitely. I
No,
mean, for you, you're leading the front on this. You're for YouTube. I mean, I feel like so much has changed in the time you've been there, specifically with Black music and hip hop. How have things evolved on your end since you've been there?
I think it's just the engagement thing where now we have the people and we have the presence, we have the intention, we have the you know what I mean to kind of be on the front lines with the hip hop world and all the other things that are coming up, like the rise of AfroBeats, and just now we're about to do something with Jamaica, and how influential that tiny island is,
Wait, talk to me about what you got with Jamaica. I'm Jamaican, so this is
Is
close to
Jamaican?
me. I
Oh, okay.
am.
Okay, so basically, I mean, it's more of an awareness, internal awareness. Is we have Shaggy and Spice and our head of public health, who's also Jamaican, along with Lior, just going through evaluating like the Jamaica's cultural capital, right? So Jamaica is the influence is crazy. You know what I mean? Between the music and the unintended byproducts of the culture, like the birth of hip hop or the birth of reggaeton, or is the trend setting with the legalization of marijuana, and those topics, and dreadlocks being turning to a style. It's just so what happens is, so it doesn't have the human capital of, let's say, China is 1 billion people, or Nigeria is 200 million people, or Ethiopia is 100 million people, right? It's like 2.8 million people, and it doesn't have the economic capital, right? In terms of like spending power of, like, let's say even I don't even know what the population of Norway is, but it has cultural capital. It is unmatched in terms of per capita. Jamaica has unmatched cultural capital per capita, right? In terms of hits, the outputs, the stars. You know what I mean? Even in music. So for me, Jamaica is just a special place. Like my father I grew up listening to Jamaican music, Jimmy Cliff and Bob Marley, and then later Freddie McGregor and stuff like that. So it's always been a part of like my personal life and even professionally, like being present when, like, I can talk about that forever. By the way,
Oh man.
but that's basically, it's more internal. But it's, what I mean, it's just to evaluate and like, hey, like,
That's good to hear, because one of the things I always thought a lot about, late 90s, early 2000s, dancehall is becoming more and more a part of the mainstream music. Sean Paul, Buju, everyone is blowing up at this moment. But if you look back, I still feel like it was a little early in terms of the industry being ready to truly build infrastructure, because I feel like by the late 2000s, so much of that reggae fusion moment that you'd had wasn't hit in the same way. And I feel like the same way that we're seeing international expansion in other areas now, and even what you're talking about, what you have going on in Jamaica, it's like, if that was, the way it was 20 years ago, would have been crazy.
Well, I was there 20 years ago in terms of like in the mix. I was working at MTV when all that happened, and it was, first of all, it was historic, right? With the Sean Paul with "Give Me the Light" blew up, and then you had Wayne Wonder, and you had TOK and Elephant Man, who was one of the best performers I've ever seen in my life up to today, right? It was a wave, and VP had to deal with Atlantic. Other people were trying to sign. It was just incredible time. It's incredible time. But one of the other things that I saw a lot of disconnects as well, in terms of of expectations, whether it be paid shows versus promo. You know what I mean? I saw there was it was so. What happens is, I believe that with everything, there's always a wave and then a crash, and then it comes back. You know, like after that chasm, right? Things come back, and we've seen that before. We saw that with .coms. We saw it with reggaeton. Reggaeton. If you remember the early days of reggaeton, there were all these what they called urban stations, Hispanic urban stations, like reggaeton with Daddy Yankee, when Gasolina and Rompe, and all those blew up. There was, and then a lot of those disappeared. They burned out. Didn't have enough content to think, but it came back so strong. It was like when it came back so strong because it had those the learning costs were paid. You know what I mean? It's like people learn, okay, this is how it works here, this is how it works there, this is how it works there. And Jamaica is no different, by the way. Jamaica is absolutely no different because music is a part of the culture there. And as now as the internet and the economics, you know what I mean, have changed, etc., it will yeah, no different. I love Jamaica. That's a special place in my heart. If I could, yeah, you know.
Yeah, the way you talk about that reminds me of something I see you say also about African artists and specifically Afrobeats. I think you were
Yeah,
asked about Wizkid and why maybe he hasn't blown up in the same way that a Bad Bunny might have blown up, you know, relative in that respect. And I remember your response to something along the lines of, well, you know, like these things happen in waves and there is a time cycle or there's a life cycle that you normally see. And that moment's gonna come. It's just a
yeah,
matter of, you know, time.
yeah. By the way, I didn't even, to be honest with you, I didn't even know the African this wave right now that's happening right now, the current wave, was going to happen in my lifetime. I spent my teenage years in Africa, you know. So I lived in America in elementary school. We moved, and when I was in junior high, we moved back, right? And I knew the music was always there, and the popularity was always there on the continent. And it was there was the folk traditional music, and then there was the stuff that young people listen to, and you could hear in the clubs or on the radio. You know, they called this called a show called Mbenge Mvenge, which was like the equivalent of Ralph McDaniel's Video Music Box, or you know what I mean, etc. And then the club was called the Dindindi. You know what I mean? So what happens is that music was always there, and it was always popping, and it was always bottomless in terms of supply, right? And even right now, by the way, America's just getting like a tip of what actually exists. You know what I mean? Like in terms of what's actually exporting to the American soil is to see this actually connect and to see people who've never stepped a foot in Africa or maybe even looked down on Africa, thought it was like the jungle, or you know what I mean, or had bad perceptions or whatever given to them by the media or by their schools, actually enjoy African music. I love it. And it happening in my lifetime while I'm still active in the music business. Psh, you know, I
It's
love it.
impressive, man. It's
Oh
impressive. I
yeah.
mean, the fact that, yeah, you didn't expect to see this in your lifetime and now you're seeing it, but now you're having an active role in that with the work you're doing now at YouTube and how much of a push it's been for those artists.
Well, that was part of the reason that YouTube was attractive to me, because I knew what was going on, right? And I knew YouTube's part in that, whether it be by default because of the way that it was set up, right? But it's very, very popular over there. YouTube is such a strong platform, and the fact that you can monetize on YouTube is makes a huge difference. You know, is it's nice to be visible and seen, it's and heard, etc., but it's even nicer to be visible and seen and paid, right? That was a big part of the attraction of even working at YouTube, is because now you're actually participating not just in the exhibition of African culture, but you're also participating in the this is like straight up business, like, you know. And I love it. And then also it's connecting, you're connecting African Americans and Afro Caribbeans and British black people who are really the drivers of all this, by the way. And so this London is the one that's the in terms of the economics. I'm not talking about the consumption, the musical, the listening. The London, that's that British pound. That's hard currency. You know, that's
Definitely.
that's yeah. That's a different. That's something else. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like what is strong and why YouTube is so powerful on that space, we've just seen it across the board, international, the exposure it's able to give artists and how quickly it's able to reach with much less friction than I think a lot of the other streaming services. That works very well for you all. And that obviously now you're seeing the investment from the major record label side going into these regions because of what streaming has been able to do by breaking those barriers and for just giving more of that exposure. I think I've seen you talk about it in this way. It's a lot of these things were already popular for so long. Streaming just democratized a lot of it. And by connecting listener to artist, you're able to see and unlock a lot more of that opportunity.
And being a connector is something that's underrated. People don't understand the value of that. It was a platform, right? But even as people, is there's like a filter process, and you can trust. Actually, the whole playlist thing is that the playlists are trusted filters. Is there's so much music out there, et cetera, et cetera. In order to keep up, that's your reference in terms of what you're looking for, and you're trusting that filter. So YouTube itself as a platform, right, as international as it it helps not just hold it, you know what I mean? Not just hold the music, but the engagement. You can see the interviews. Like, somebody's watching this on YouTube right now. Somebody's watching this on YouTube right now. The exchange of information that's happening in real time. The exchange of boogie. The exchange of money. Because when you watch it and they run ads, pa, you watch it on your premium, a little piece of that whatever. I'm not gonna say the price because it's part of it. Yeah, is going to the creator. So that's fun. That's history. You know.
No, that's what's up. So for you in this role, what does success look like? What are the benchmarks that you're measuring and what are the main
Hmm.
goals you have?
That's a very good question. Actually, that's actually the beginning of the year. I put that in my little notebook at the top.
Oh, let's see.
Educating. Right here. This right here. I don't want someone to take a screen grab. That's proprietary information, but I'll give the summary. Is a measuring success is the culture is that YouTube is synonymous with culture, right? Is you don't look at it as two things. It's like the destination. Uh, what we just talked about with monetization, with education, and so that people understand it and so they benefit from it, even inadvertently. Thing is moments that the moments they live on YouTube, the moments that exist on even on other platforms that they originate on YouTube. Uh, in terms of like with Black culture, is that our dopeness is unanimously understood. I don't even know if I'm using the word unanimously. It's like a no-brainer. It's obvious. You know what I mean? You see what I'm saying? It's obvious. It's like when you watch a marathon and you see Kenyans winning, right? And you're like, and you're not shocked. You're not like, oh wow, Kenyan. You know, it's like, oh yeah, it's Kenyan. Yeah, that's how. If that's our feel success, it hasn't always been obvious. It was always obvious to us, but it wasn't always obvious to the rest of the world. Like how dope are the many cultures that make up what we're calling Black culture for simplification. You know what I mean? Uh, how dope they are is that we don't that you don't have to be part of it to understand that, or you know what I mean? And yeah, so that's the quality part. You know, most of it is quality. You know, but that's what success looks like to me. If all those things are easy, you know, and YouTube is the easy destination for to achieve those things, whether it be from a consumer perspective, from an industry perspective, from artist perspective, from an ad spender perspective. You know what I mean? The subscriber, is that they're pleased, that they're like, yeah, you know.
Yeah. And I think for you, you're most likely working with creators, with artists that have their stuff on a number of platforms. And there's likely many of them you've gotten to know personally. And they may feel like, okay, I'm already stretched thin. I am trying to spread myself. TikTok is blowing up, or all these other things are blowing up. Do you have a pitch to them about, okay, this is why you should spend more time in YouTube, or this is why you should have a bit more focus, or how you should think about YouTube maybe relative to some of the other places that you may put your stuff out on?
So I don't have a pitch, right? And even I work with a lot of people who work like with a lot of different creators and stuff like that. And even before I got to YouTube, YouTube was made already. It was like already, you know what I mean? Like the its impact was already proven, right? Even before I got to YouTube. So uh, at the stage we were talking about brand maturity, like before we started on off camera and stuff. At the stage I entered YouTube, people already understood that. So the conversations are more informational, right? Where they're asking very specific questions, because almost everyone uses YouTube, like at least in our world, right? Uses YouTube, and or the artists have accounts or labels or managers or et cetera, et cetera. So usually the questions are really, really or the conversations are topical. It's about a new feature, or it's about they're pitching us sometimes. Like we get pitched, we're listening to albums and this, and they're talking about possible marketing or co-marketing. They're talking about I don't know. There's so many things. I don't know. That's hard. But no, I don't find myself having to pitch. YouTube is like the OG of platforms, and it's also staple. It's like there's a lot of these quote unquote apps or websites that don't last, don't have the longevity that YouTube has already had. So yeah, so the nature of the conversations they're not like pitchy. We're not like pitching them like you know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, that's a good point. I mean, it's the second largest search engine, and it got that
yeah.
title for a reason. The impact and everything.
I by the way, I I use YouTube a lot, and I'm not saying that just because I work there. You know what I mean? Like, so when I use YouTube a lot, I feel like I won. Like, you know what I mean? Because I get paid. I learn also about the platform, and I'm getting paid to et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, so yeah. What did Biggie say? I'm not only the no. It doesn't apply here.
Wait, what was the quote though?
No, I was about to have an Ari Melber moment. You know what I mean? Like, how Ari Melber always quotes songs, et cetera, et cetera. So I had I was, I'm not only the client, I'm the player president. Like, you know what I
Yep,
mean?
yep, yep.
Yeah. So he was like, I'm not only the client. Like, yeah. So, but it doesn't apply. I'm not.
Yeah. No, I mean, you almost pulled it off though. You almost got that one in there though.
Yeah. But it was on the top of my mind. But then when when your filter evaluates, oh no, this is a different parallel.
Right. It's funny. On that note, I will give Ari Melber credit on that, because I think he's able to, the way he weaves it. Sometimes, like, I'm just like, damn, that was like you had that ready. Like,
oh yeah, I saw him do a J. Cole one yesterday, and it wasn't literal. I was like, this is like, okay, now he's taking it to like algebra, where it's not like literally on. He was talking about the Supreme Court justice nominations or something. And I was like, wow, okay. He came to our Hip Hop History Month event.
oh, that's dope.
Yeah, we did a Hip Hop History Month for November, and he came through. Like, he photo ops with him and Slick Rick or DJ Premier. Like, he was there and everything.
That's what's up. That's good to hear. Well, with YouTube, it's hard to talk about YouTube, especially with Black music, without talking about one of the biggest stars on it, NBA YoungBoy. And
Yes.
I know he's been one of the poster artists that have showed what is possible. And from your perspective, what do you think that he's doing that others aren't necessarily doing, which has given him the amount of success that he's had?
Consistency. The young boy, what he does, at least from my observation, I'm just speaking from my observation, my point of view, is he's regular about new content, like very regular, and it's always trends. It's always trends. Sometimes if I'm on the treadmill, I'll go put on a playlist, or the next day I'll put on the trending just to see what's going on, etc., etc. And it'll be like young boy heart and soul, young boy alligator walk, young boy emo rockstar. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy's prolific, right? And so what happens is he's his relationship with his fans. He's saying, and by the way, he's doing all this with the limitations of the law that you know what I mean that constrain his ability to move, right? So, which impresses me because I say, oh, this is work ethic. You see what I'm saying? And what happens is the previous job I playlisted no smoke because DJ Chill, actually Untouchable, even because Jeff Vaughn and Mike Karen and them, he was signed to them at the time, and APG, and then but No Smoke. I remember DJ Chose produced that, and Chose, we had playlisted some stuff with Chose, so, and Chose even flew in from Houston, like literally, right, like to like play his music and all that stuff. So the other thing that I've noticed, at least when I see the social media talk, people forget how long Young Boy has been grinding. Like this did not happen overnight. Like he's been consistently building, you know. And I talked to his manager Alex, and Alex will let you know, like, yo, this guy this, and then he'll send this, and like, oh, did you see this, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And like, oh wow, like they're constantly like production mode. You know what I mean? It's like production mode, and then when you watch the videos, you get a glimpse into his life. And my niece, like, she's like you know, it's like, don't say nothing, like young boy, like, you know what I mean. So what happens is this. So he's also like built this connection with his fans where they're rooting for him. You see it in social media comments with the young boy better, or you know what I mean, or YB better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you're like, wow, this is fandom, right? This is fandom. It's almost K-pop level fandom. You see what I'm saying? In terms of like the aggression, we see it with Nicki Minaj and her fans. So one of the things, so Young Boy is constantly, you know what I mean? He's keeping the algorithm warm. You know what I'm saying? Like just like the same way people rap on beats, and you know what I mean? And they're floating on, you know, on the thing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So even the cadence, the uploads, and his library and stuff. And Alex told me some stuff that I never even heard of for another artist. I'm not even going to say it because I don't want somebody to try this, because stuff that his fans do on YouTube. There's actually behavior on YouTube that I never heard of for another artist ever, like ever, and everything. Yeah, but I mean, I'm not going to repeat it because I want somebody to try it. You know what I mean? But
yeah. It's impressive. I've always compared his strategy to, not surprisingly, much more of a YouTuber than a hip hop artist in some ways. Like the way that his consistency, it like reminds me of how Mr. Beast or someone like that is like, okay, this is what I'm going to give you. These are what the fans in the audience want. And he's prolific in a way from that perspective.
So I want to challenge you on that part. Is the artists do that, right? They do that but not to undercount like how he understands his audience as well. You see what I'm saying? There are artists who operate in that way, you know, and are YouTube first in terms of like the way they platform. Something that you asked me what we say to labels. Something I say to labels is I like talking about. I won't even name the name of the artist, but what that person does is they have different incarnations of their song, right? They'll drop an art track, and then they'll do a lyric video, then they'll do a visualizer, then they'll do a trailer for their premium music video, then they'll drop the premium music video, then they'll drop the behind the scenes, then they'll drop maybe fan created because now the song has gained popularity. So there's like this management of the shelf life of a song. You see what I'm saying? It's allowing it to kind of build and germinate, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of artists that do stuff. So I just want to take away the Young Boy's credit, like that he's actually making music that really connects, and his vulnerabilities in some of the songs, or his aggression in some of the songs, really connects with his audience, actually connects with a generation, because it's like a specific generation. And with time, we'll look back and we'll be impressed. We're living in it right now, you know what I mean? And also, we may be in a generation that is kind of like has a different canon of music that we're,
Yeah.
that's in rotation,
No, I think that's a fair point, and I didn't mean necessarily to like discredit what he's doing by
Yeah, no,
calling
I
it
know you didn't,
YouTube.
but I just had to
Yeah,
clear it up. I was
yeah,
like,
for sure, for sure.
I just had to clear it up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think that the piece of that stuck out to me is like how like, and I think a lot of artists do this, but like how is like music videos, it's
Yeah.
like the formula that he's figured out, like this is what the audience wants. He keeps it low budget. He's able to like, but make it still be engaging and creative in that type of way. It pulls in so many elements of things I've seen. It kind of reminds me like, okay, like how someone in entertainment, for instance, like I was just talking to Kev on stage about this. I was like, hey, this is the budget, but we know how to make this work and maximize it beyond what it needs to. And I mean, you even see Tyler Perry doing some stuff like that as well with how he manages his budget. It's really, I think, thoughtful. And yeah, that's why it like what piqued me to him. I remember I was researching him for an article I had done, and I looked up how many videos. I was like, okay, how many videos has he done? It was like 350 plus just in like a short number of years. Like that takes dedication.
And also, his label, Atlantic Records, right? Atlantic Recording Corporation, right? Is they have a lot of successes on YouTube. Like, Julie Kaiser, Craig, Julie Kaiser, Von Ray, Saslow, Lou Robinson, all of them. I'll name the whole staff. Angelique. What happens is they have a lot of successes, whether it be Cardi B, Kodak Black, who else is on? Bruno Mars. You know what I mean? They really take YouTube seriously. And Burna Boy, my gosh, how am I gonna not say? CK, the Love Nwantiti was so huge, right? But what happens is they know when to step in, when to leave it alone, when to, you know what I mean? They have that cadence as well, like with their artists, with the songs. They know when to go hard, impact, et cetera, et cetera. So, and that's just from my own relationships and discussions, and
yeah, that's what's up. Yeah, I think that's one of the cool things that we see about just streaming in general, how artists have taken that opportunity to be like, hey, no, this is a different era, and I'm not going to try to do things the way that we would have done in the streaming era. And obviously, we see hip hop artists, Black artists are more likely to push on that front. And one of the things that always stuck out to me about this era, and I know you talked about it too, is you can release your album, and then just given the fact that it is digital, you can change it, you can adapt it over time. We saw Kanye do this when Life of Pablo came out, and even more recently, we kind of saw
research.
Yeah, man, yeah. We kind of saw it with CLB and Donda. What is your thought on that? Because I think that is something that a lot of people thought was going to take off at that point, but it still only happened every once in a while. What do you think?
Yeah, but you did your research, because I've only talked about that once, ever, like, you know what I mean, outside of the public. Is so with playlisting or curation, is one of the benefits or advantages is you're able to tweak something if something's not working, or you thought of something after. So playlists they're not static. You know what I'm saying? Radios like this every week when they're doing their ads and the drops. MTV, BET, you know what I mean? When we had our heavy rotation, medium rotation, light rotation, mixtape, mix show, whatever, right? You can go in there, et cetera, et cetera. So the technology allows you to tweak now, you know what I mean? Technology actually even allows you to go do a remastered or redo. I think Britney, well, not Britney, I was about to say Britney Swift. Taylor Swift.
Taylor, yeah.
Is you know what I mean? She redid a whole. So that ability to make something non-static. I don't know if what's dynamic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So these bodies of work are now dynamic because there's no taboo to go in there and add a few records and call it a deluxe. You know what I mean? You see what I'm saying? is remixes will never even exist on a in this physical era, in the physical era. You know what I mean? It was like, oh yeah, that was on the Jason's Lyrics soundtrack. That wasn't on the, the album, is we have that luxury now because of technology. Yeah, we have to give technology credit where it's due. Like, these tech guys are smart.
Yeah, it's funny because we both have heard plenty of criticisms about the streaming era, and a lot of them do have their merit. That's why they have traction. But people often ignore where things have gotten better, right? And I think they often ignore challenges that may have existed in past eras. Because I think one of the things I often hear is like, okay, well, you have all these albums that are just bloated with 20 plus track albums or just to try to drive up the streams. And my response normally is like, that, yes, that's true. That is a strategy. But are you forgetting the CD era and how people would stuff these double
Double
albums when
CDs.
there really wasn't always worth having a double album? Or,
Yeah.
all of the filler that was just trying to sell you a 20 track album when a lot of those songs weren't always worthwhile. Like, there was a lot of fat to trim in the CD era too.
Or they would add a bullshit DVD to make you feel like, you spent the
Yep.
money, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I mean, at the same time, you're 100% right. At the same time, we have to be conscious. Things are going to change. They always change, right? So we also have to be conscious that we don't lose certain kind of cultural aspects, like, right? Meaning, like, that tight album, that body of work, that's solid. You know what I mean? Like, no skips, track 1 to track 9, or if it was an album that had the A side and the B side, you know what I mean? Like, the A side felt different from the. Do you remember Boys to Men back in the day? Adagio and Allegro.
Yep.
It's like you turn the cassette, and this is the fast songs, and these were the slow songs, etc. So the thing is this. So also, we don't want to get swallowed by technology, so that when we move it to the next things, certain uh, 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 rights, or cultural rights, rights, get lost, or you know what I mean, evaporate, is or slip, fall between the cracks, etc., etc. So when it comes to those criticisms, I also listen. And where we come in as humans is pushing for that balance. Is continuing to tell that story. Why is it? I just saw the most interesting video, right? It was talking about legacy design. Oh shit, what was it saying? Okay, no, it's gonna take me too long to remember it.
But you brought up something that I know I've thought a lot about, the whole aspect of classics, because that's something that people feel is not necessarily harder to pull off, but they feel like there's less incentive to release that type of revered work the same way that we can talk about the hip hop albums that are either, the certified classics or the debatable classics too. But a lot of people feel like there hasn't been as many recent albums to be in that discussion. I mean, I would have some pushback on that, but I know that that notion and thought is out there.
I love watching people who are passionate about sports talk about sports, and this is why I love that. Is they'll go back and they'll make references to way before they were born, right? Whether it be talking about Babe Ruth, or you know what I mean, or Willie Mays, or whatever. So what happens is, and that's just baseball, is that tradition, that continuity. You see what I'm saying? That we have some sorts of standards where we can compare things of the past. You see what I'm saying? That's why for me is that I'm big on generation transfer, right? Is that my dad is the reason why I even work in music, because he loved music so much, he played so much of it, and then somehow it rubbed off onto me. You see what I'm saying? And then I want to do the same to other generations, etc. It's like, okay, this is what was really good. Like, don't let this disappear, etc. Here, and so that's why those things to me are just important. Just to, like, even the concept of an album is important, because it gives us a standard to compare to what before, and then also gives us incentive. It gives artists incentive. It gives artists, especially and producers, to make timeless music, right? Evergreen standards, right? so that even when they're not here, that their art or their music still lives on. You said that they may not physically be around, but their music lives on. So if we don't have those standards to kind of push people to have quality, we might have a forgotten era. This might be considered the dark era of music, you know, or like the steroids era of baseball, or you know what I mean, where it's like an asterisk. Yeah, but at that time they weren't really making good music. Or that was the Great Depression of music in terms of how we're remembered or how our musical contributions are remembered. So yeah, so that's why I like to kind of. It's actually good to keep people on their toes like that, you know.
Yeah, the steroid era of baseball is an interesting comparison with this because I've always been one that looked at that era as, hey, that was the landscape. It's unfortunate that a lot of that happened, but I'm not here for, erasure of, all the things that did happen. And I would hope that people look at this current era that we're in now, not,
Oh, no,
in,
yeah, no,
yeah.
no, we're not there yet. No, we're not there. But I'm just saying it can happen. Like we're it's one of my professor when I was in college used to say the reason we learn history because no empire is immortal. You know, is
Hmm.
that you learn history to figure out how to prolong mortality. You know what I'm saying? In terms of what you're working on or staying alive. It's basically, you know what I mean? Is so we're not there. Like we're not there, but this doesn't mean we can't be there. It'd be arrogance to think that they'll never happen to us. You know what I mean? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
So
You
what do
know.
we do? Well, not necessarily like we collectively, but I guess collectively, yeah, as an industry, like what do we do to make sure that doesn't happen?
Is we push for balance. So we reward. This is not chasing numbers and being an ambulance chaser, and is integrity or in terms of like like being real with ourselves. Like that was good or that was trash, but it's popular. It is what it is. And it gets treated like trash that's popular. You know what I mean? And I'm not dissing anything, but this is the reality. It's when you can still have that honest evaluation. You know what I mean? Qualitative, not quantitative. We're not talking about numbers. Everything numbers. You have that say, hey, wow, like this is this, and otherwise we may get pushed to that. If we don't do it, we might get pushed to that. Like we might get forced to be in a landscape where it eliminates the weakest.
Yeah. The numbers thing is real. And I know that as someone that writes and covers a lot of this space, I do share and, obviously analyze the space so there's context. But I do think back to, especially when you think back to like the rap albums that stick out the most, the example I often think about is okay, look at the blueprint, right? Obviously, there were many things that happened that week that may have
That
that
day,
that that hurt. Yeah, that day. There are many things that happened that day, 9/11, that hurt its sales. But I've never heard anyone at that time be like, oh, well, Ja Rule's Pain is Love sold just as much or around the same as Blueprints. So, was Jay-Z really all that? Like, you just never heard anyone say that because that's just not how people talk or think about it. But it's interesting because I feel like so much of the narrative leading up to like, let's say like CLB and Donda was so much around like numbers, this. And yeah, it's
but that goes back to like the Kanye versus 50. Remember first
true.
week sales? They were on 106 in Park looking at each other, and et cetera, et cetera. Or yeah, TRL too. I think no one didn't show up. Okay, no.
Yeah, I think they were on both of, yeah, the
Well,
106
both.
in Park
Yeah,
one is the one they
yeah,
were
yeah.
both
They
at though.
show up like the showdown
Yeah.
and et
And
cetera,
then they
et
had the
cetera.
Rolling Stone cover.
Yeah, and I think that was. I mean, I think it was for fun, but it became part of the culture where everybody was like, it was almost like the movies. Movies did it first with box office. You know what I mean?
Right.
Weekend box office, etc. Actually, in sports, it happens a lot in sports with the AP college football polls, or you know what I mean,
Right.
et
But
cetera, et
yeah,
cetera.
with box office too, it's an interesting thing because I feel like like one of the biggest movies of all time, Avatar. Technically, I've never had a conversation about that movie since that movie came out, and that movie I
Oh
think is
man.
one of the top five, or it was the best-selling movie ever when it came out.
So for me, Laz Alonso was in that movie, right? And I used to work with Laz at BET,
Oh,
right?
dope.
Yeah, this is like the early 2000s. He was And I remember when he left to LA to go become an actor, right? I remember that. He had been in Disappearing Acts. Terry McMillan did a movie that was like an HBO movie with Terry McMillan, the author, and he was like the moving guy. And then we were like, wow, Laz is in a movie, right? And then he literally quit his job and moved to LA to become an actor, and he did it. So when he did that, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is my avatar. I don't even remember what Avatar was about because he was you couldn't even see him. He was like one of the he was like the boyfriend. And then I remember seeing him at a party, and I was like, oh man, I didn't even want to go and say hi because he won't remember me. Like it's from the days of like when he was like just like grinding and stuff, et cetera, et cetera. But I was for me, Avatar. Sorry to go off topic, but it was just inspiring because I was like, wow, somebody who I worked with in my younger days, you know what I mean? Like, and he went out there and he said, I remember him saying, I remember having a conversation with him, like, yo, yeah, man, I'm going to LA. I'm gonna go do this acting thing. Like, whoa, what? I was like, oh, and he did it, you know.
And that's
Yeah,
powerful too. I mean,
yeah,
a movie like that, so many people saw. You got James Cameron behind you. I mean, big
yeah,
moves.
no,
Yeah.
that was. I don't, but to the point, I don't even remember what exactly the movie was. But I saw it in the theaters, but but for those personal reasons, was like, wow, like he's one of us, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you know?
No, that makes sense. That's what's up. Well, no, man, it's exciting. It's an exciting time, I think, for the industry, especially to reflect on what's happening now and where things are going and how we'll look back on this moment. And
Yeah.
for you, I know so much of your role right now is forward looking. So, what are the things that excite you most that are on the horizon? What are you thinking about the trends of where music's heading and how people are thinking about emerging technology in music in this era?
Like which emerging technology
Like
specific?
Web3 and
Oh,
NFTs and tokens.
excited. Uh, I love what's happening with NFTs and DAOs and those ecosystems and the wallets and etc. and crypto and Ethereum. Like well, Ethereum's crypto. Uh, and then I mean, I'm sure you saw Susan's statement. Susan, our CEO, she made a statement, and she called it. I really like the words, and I'm not kissing like anybody's like thing. Is it, her words were like it's a source of inspiration. You know what I mean? And I like that. I was like, hey, that's okay. I like that. That's a thing. So for me, I have my friend Mikhail Moore, right? Mikhail Moore, he like works with like Jadena and Janelle Monet and you know, et cetera, et cetera. So he schooled me a lot, like gave me like you know what I mean, like crash course over the phone. This a little while back, and then ever since that day, I really like started doing a lot of research and participating. Uh, uh, and then with YouTube, I know for a fact, like I mean, I can't talk about it, but you know, I know for a fact that there's like extensive discussion and plotting and planning, and you know, and so I'm excited to be part of an organization that lets at least, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
like embracing, like not fighting. You see what I'm saying? Because I've been in organizations, and I'm not going to name those organizations, right? But who fought innovation because in order to protect the pockets, like the current pockets, like you know what I mean. So I don't like that spirit. That's not a cool spirit, you know.
So, what's your wallet looking like? You got any bored apes in there, or
No, no. I'm not rich. Like you know what I mean. Like is uh I can't say it's too early to say. I can't say it. I can't
okay?
say
Well,
because
we'll have to check
no,
back
no,
in
no,
with you
no.
again when.
Well, yeah, this conversation will be followed up
Everything is fine with me
because
today.
there is
Thanks for
some stuff in the.
asking.
Oh,
Oh
what's
no!
that?
Wait, repeat that last part. Yeah, my bad.
Oh no, no. This conversation will be continued because the thing that's in process now, I can't talk about it in order because of you know what I mean. Like is not ready to be spoken publicly. It's not even my place to be the one to you know to speak about publicly. But 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 this whole Web3 thing excites me for Africa and for Black people. You know why? Think about this. talk about streaming and Web 2. Look what it did for hip hop. Look what it did for the continent. Like, you see what I'm saying? Because we talk about the music because that's what we're in, but there's so much other stuff that uh, through social media, etc., got popularized, that got exposure. Think tourism and how people start looking at us as humans or as places as not like what mainstream media pushes, etc. So that democratization, that level playing field, if Web 2.0 did that, well, just imagine what Web 3 is going to do. You know what I mean? Like, that's when it's going to really be a wrap, you know?
Yeah, because to the whole, focus point of this conversation, the evolution of technology brings fans and listeners together. And whenever that happens, we see these areas that the gatekeepers held back start to unlock all of the power and value that they have. So, like you said,
And, and,
that's what
and, and
happened
I'm
here.
from the gatekeeper era. You know what I mean? Some gatekeepers were hate keepers. They were trying to block and sabotage or obstruct or leave out, not be inclusive and or condescending. I saw it with my own eyes. Is it like so? The thing is this. So the more and more stripping of that, etc., then it's the more meritocracy. You know.
Definitely. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Well, hey, we covered everything in this conversation. I mean,
Okay, okay.
this was dope. I mean, I mean, you definitely sparked me up with a few things, and I think we got to link a few things in the show notes too, just so everyone can, catch up for sure. Make sure. I think you mentioned a few things we'll reference, but before we let you go, is there anything else that you want to plug or you want to let the Trapital audience know about?
Oh man, yeah. Okay, do some shout outs.
For sure.
Shout out. Let me think. Some people at the office because so many people make so much dope stuff happen. Shout out to Paul Pennington. Shout out to Brittany Lewis and Ada Hopkins and Adam McFarlane and uh, Arif and Chelsea, the BCB. Shout out to who? Lior. Shout out to Lior Cohen. Shout out to Vivian Lewis. Shout out to Stephen Bryan. Let's see what else to plug. Oh, let's plug the Black Voices Fund. Is Future Insiders is continuing. You know what Future Insiders is?
No.
It's like a program. Oh, Wallow. We're gonna be working directly with Wallow. He's gonna be doing something very similar to Future Insiders, modeled after Future Insiders. It's like engagement. It's like with young people, and you're giving them game and teaching them about how to navigate not just YouTube but the industry, etc. And with Wallow, it's work that reaching the streets directly with no buffer, no in between, and you learn about monetization or algorithms or you know what I mean, or AdSense, whatever, you know what I mean. Is we're doing these programs where we're it's not just engagement, it's not social only, it's a knowledge exchange, and we're demystifying YouTube and simplifying it in the language of not in corporate tech speak. You know what I mean? It's in like plain layman's language, etc. So some of that work, Black Voice Fund. Damn, what else can I plug? I got this too much stuff. This Black Voice. I'll tell you right now. Give me a second.
While you're pulling that up, no, Wallow makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think $1 million worth of game is great, and even the content and the way that he communicates with his audience on socials, he'll be great for that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a big fan of $1 million worth of game. Wallow and Gilly, that the big fan of that. But what happened is Wallow came and spoke to us. We have an internal series called Race to Equality. It's internal. He spoke to us and he just blew the company away. Like literally, everyone was just like, "Wow," from his perspective to some of his insights, and so that's how that happened. Actually, it was very organic. Very, very organic, and he has such a unique history, and his approach is so impressive. Like, yeah, he's part of the movement.
That's what's up. Good stuff, man. Hey, Tuma, this is great, man. Thanks again for coming
Oh,
on.
thank you, Dan. Thank you so much.